Episode 2: The Man Whose Shadow Covered the Land. Long after the quiet fog of peace had settled upon the lands of Ukpili, the people continued to live in joyful simplicity, hunting, fishing, trading in the morning sun, and gathering under the moonlight to tell stories of their ancestors. They were a people of laughter and long memory, of rituals and riddles, and in their midst walked a man whose very presence turned heads and made silence bow. He was not just a man, he was a mountain of flesh, a towering wall of muscle and wisdom, whose feet seemed to shake the earth gently when he walked. The children called him Oboroni, meaning the thunder that laughs, because his laughter rolled like distant drums over the forest hills. His hands were the size of calabashes, his voice deeper than the Obudu cave winds, and yet his heart was soft like ripe pawpaw. Oboroni was not born in Ukpili, or so the stories whispered, but no one knew where he truly came from. What they knew was this: wherever he went, peace followed. If two brothers fought over land, Oboroni would sit between them like a tree that shaded both sides. If a woman cried that her goats had vanished, he would rise before dawn to search the hills with her. And when Ogarugu, a stubborn drunk from Okashon village, was caught stealing a neighbor's fowl, it was Oboroni who stood in the middle of the gathering, placed his hand on Ogarugu's shoulder and said, "Even a hungry leopard must not hunt in a friend's backyard. But before we roast him alive, let us first ask what chased him from his cave." The crowd dispersed in laughter and understanding. Ogarugu wept, swore to change, and offered 2 plantain bunches and a rabbit as apology. Yes, Oboroni was more than a man. To some, he was a protector. To others, a prophet without shine. The children ran to him with scraped knees. The elders leaned toward him in counsel. Even the wind seemed to carry his name when it swept across the valleys of Obong and beyond. But as the moon moved in its seasons, so did the hearts of men begin to stir with thoughts that had long rested. One evening, under the low fire of the elders' hut, beside the sacred stone of Ijij, the spirit of beginnings, the council of Ukpili gathered. Grey-bearded men with thick raffia bands around their arms whispered deep into the night. "Brothers," said Elder Okoma, the oldest among them, "we have lived long in peace without a king, but if a village can dance without a drum, how much sweeter would the rhythm be if the drum arrives?" Heads nodded. Palm wine gurgled into carved cups. The idea had taken root. If strangers from Okashon or the warriors from Obong hear that Ukpili has no king, they may one day march into our lands. But if they hear that Oboroni is our king, they will tremble before they reach our border. A big tree at the entrance keeps the lion from entering. Another elder added, and he smiles. Even babies stretch their hands to him. Young and old, he knows us all. If we must have a king, let it be a man the people already kneel for without being told. A parable passed from mouth to mouth. The yam that feeds the whole family should not be left on the roof during the rains. So it was settled. The next morning, a group of 7 elders dressed in leopard hide skirts and crowned with eagle feathers made their way to Oboroni's compound, a humble mud hut surrounded by wooden carvings and the bones of wild beasts. He was pounding yam when they arrived, shirtless, sweat rolling like beads of oil down his back. He welcomed them with a loud laugh. "Oh, my fathers have come. Is it war or wine today?" They laughed and sat. For a long while they spoke in riddles, parables, and praise. Then finally, Elder Okoma said the words. "We want to crown a king in Ukpili, and we have looked across the hills and rivers, and no head fits the crown more than yours." Oboroni was silent. He dropped the peso gently. He looked to the forest, as if waiting for a bird to answer. At first, he laughed it off. "I am but a hunter," he said. "I sleep on the floor and eat what the bush gives me." But they pressed further. And at last, he agreed. The very next day, the news rang like iron against rock. The people screamed with joy, running from hut to hut, fetching drums, beating gongs. Children danced barefoot. Old women orulated and tied red cloths around their waist. The men began to prepare palm wine in calabashes as large as canoe bowls. They all gathered beneath the sacred Iroko tree in the center of Ukpili, that same tree whose roots twisted deep into the earth like the stories of their forefathers. It was to be a day of glory. A day of beginning. When the rain falls in the dry season, it is either a blessing or a warning. But no one thought of warnings that day. All they saw was the joy of what was coming. To be continued.